Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. My name's Lewis if you're new around here. In today's episode, we're going to be looking ahead to Club World Cup Fantasy Matchday 6. I'll talk you through my team selection and my potential transfer strategy ahead of the new round. So without any more wait, let's get straight into it. So just taking a look at my Matchday 5 review, I ended the round on 71 points, which was fairly good considering some of the scores that managers managed around my rank. So I was quite happy with 71 points. In goal, Weatherton failed to keep a clean sheet against Chelsea, which I kind of expected. You could tell that with the Chelsea double up in attack that I expected Chelsea to score. Now, you could say the same, I suppose, against Bayern. So, I mean, I was very shocked that I had one clean sheet this round from my goalkeepers. I picked up a return at all. I fully expected to lose either one goalkeeper or two going into the next round. But Donnarumma again with back-to-back 8 points. That's back-to-back clean sheets, and also that means PSG have managed 4 clean sheets in 5 Club World Cup fantasy matches now. So Donnarumma turning out to be a very, very good pick for me, even at his price point. I remember a couple of weeks back, I was kind of questioning his price point, but I just think he's just been worth it, considering the goalkeepers elsewhere. There's been not many clean sheets outside of PSG, really. Obviously, I also benefited from that PSG clean sheet with via Hakeimi, who managed a third consecutive attacking return. Just been a fantastic asset, Hakeimi. Chavarria also picked up an assist for Fluminense, ended up on scouting bonus, although didn't manage the clean sheet against Chelsea, obviously. Garcia didn't pick up his clean sheet, although looked set to get a double-digit haul after scoring. Trent managed to bag his clean sheet, whereas my Garcia didn't, so I'm a bit annoyed about that. But, returns from my back three there. Didn't get any returns from Stanisic, who got injured early in the match, and also, obviously, Cucurella, who I thought would be a good asset going into the game, but he just wasn't. I ended up on 4 out of 5 blanks in my midfield as well. Midfield has just not been it for me over the past few weeks. Blanks from Neto, Arias again, Kvaratskhelia again, Elise again. So lots of really, really good midfield options blank in there. The only option that didn't blank that I had was obviously Cole Palmer, who he scored early on in the game. I think he scored around the 15, 16 minutes, definitely before the 20th minute. So for captaincy, that was a huge return for me. And obviously, I think if you're getting 8 to 9 points in this stage of the competition, I think you probably should stick, definitely going into the next week as well. I mean, it's a shame Palmer didn't do more, having returned so early, but I will definitely take it. In attack, obviously, Kane blanked. He came close. He probably should have scored. Nearly got a penalty at the end as well. So the Bayern trio all blanked for me this week. Leonardo didn't for Al Hilal. The 4 million striker scored. Al Hilal have exited the competition, so they've gone, which means Leonardo has 2. One player I was really happy with was obviously Guirassy of Dortmund. I thought Guirassy would get quite a few chances. He ended up not getting quite a few chances, but in the end, it was just he earned a penalty, he scored it, which was a fantastic return for him of 9 points. So although Guirassy wasn't as good as I thought he would be in that last game, the penalty, the goal, I just think it was a all-around solid return from Guirassy. So yeah, really happy with my week in general. So let's just take a look at where that has put me in terms of rank. So that 71 points has ended up taking me up to 55th in the world prior to this game week. I think prior to this round, I think it was around 86. So it's a 30-place climb. Really, really happy about that. I think I went up to 22nd halfway through the match day. So yeah, managing to maintain the top 100 is brilliant going into obviously the penultimate round. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with my rank. In terms of rank at this point, I'm at a point where I don't really think I can win, but at the same time, I don't really want to fall out of the top 100. If anything, I want to climb even higher. So although obviously, game plan dependent on, in terms of strategy and stuff, I might try and be a little bit more aggressive. I certainly will for the final. It's something that's happened to me. It's something that's really benefited. I've benefited from in Champions League finals and UCL fantasy and stuff like that. So I think the final is probably where I'll be a little bit more aggressive. But I think going into the semi-final, it's a case of just making sure I've got all of the best players from all of the teams that are playing, maybe double up on defenses and stuff like that, and hopefully try and even maintain a top 100 or even, climb into the top 50, maybe even the top 25. So really, really happy with my rank. I wouldn't have expected to be here at this point, looking at it at the start of the season. So yeah, very happy overall. But yeah, let's take a look at my matchday my matchday 6 team selection. So in goal, I've only got one goalkeeper this week, only one playing goalkeeper. Obviously, Weatherton exited the competition last week due to obviously the match against Chelsea. But I'm quite happy having just one goalkeeper. Like, I didn't expect to have any goalkeepers this week, so having even one is huge for me. I think you only need one goalkeeper. I don't even think you need a goalkeeper. You've got to remember that goalkeepers kind of offer the least potential when it comes to earning points. And I just think using really valuable transfers on goalkeepers at this point who probably, can earn 8 points tops is just not really what you want to be doing. Obviously, defenders can get double-digit hauls, and that is the same for midfielders and forwards, although midfielders have been, less good recently over the past couple of weeks. I do think, still your priority should be defence, midfield and forward. So for that reason, I'm quite happy owning just Donnarumma. Obviously, PSG, they've kept 4 out of 5 clean sheets now. Donnarumma's kept back-to-back clean sheets, back-to-back 8 points as well. So I just think, Donnarumma is more than enough going into this week. Yes, he plays Real Madrid. It's going to be quite tough to keep a clean sheet. But, we've seen PSG keep clean sheets against difficult opposition in the past. Obviously, the game against Bayern being an example, they kept clean sheets against Liverpool, Arsenal, in the Champions League recently. So, yeah, I'm quite comfortable owning just Donnarumma going into this. And if I do lose Donnarumma this week, then I probably won't replace the goalkeeper unless I'm stacking up in the final on a back line, looking for a clean sheet. So they're my goalkeepers heading into matchday 6. Now, you can see that I've only lost one defender this week due to an accident, and that is Stanisic. I don't think Stanisic would play even if Bayern won that game against PSG. He looked really injured when coming off. So he'll definitely be someone that I need to replace going into this week. But outside of Stanisic, I've got Hakeimi. Hakeimi's, again, mentioned before that he's managed 3 consecutive attacking returns with clean sheets now. So going without him seems, really, really foolish. He's been one of the best assets in the game, one of the most consistent. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ended the season as one of the highest scoring players, as he did in Champions League Fantasy. So for me, Hakeimi's a lock. Now, I also have Cucurella against Fluminense. Chelsea have been hit and miss defensively, but Fluminense have failed to score a couple of times against good opposition. They've failed to score a few times now. So I do think that there could be an opportunity for Chelsea to keep a clean sheet. And if they do, you have to look at Colwill. Colwill's suspended. Badiashiel's injured. Obviously, Reece James had a little hiccup recently, but he looks back. But outside of that, it's only really Cucurella who's really, really nailed for minutes and potentially toss in. So I do, Cucurella, he's been super attacking. I think he managed like a couple of shots and a few key passes in his most recent game prior to his last. So, he is one of Chelsea's most attacking defenders. I think he offers multiple routes to points as well. So for me, he's another shoe-in. Chavarria also, although, I'm not completely convinced by Chavarria for Fluminense this week. I think he limped off around the 80th minute, but it could have just been a knock. He does play wing-back for Fluminense. He managed an assist in his most recent match. I think he'll come off early if he starts, which is obviously good because, he's got a better chance of keeping a clean sheet. I just think, at his price, and I don't really need to do anything with him. He plays right. He could keep a clean sheet. Even if he doesn't, he could still get an attacking return. And that is sort of similar for Garcia, right? Garcia has scored and assisted in his Club World Cup fantasy campaign so far. So similar to Trent, who I don't have, I think Garcia's a really good option. He's been excellent, Garcia. I think he's been fantastic. He's been very lively offensively. And I know he's playing PSG, who have very good attacking players. But obviously, his attacking threat really does kind of boost his appeal up, doesn't it, going into this week? So that is my current back line. I currently have a back 4 of Hakeimi, Cucurella, Chavarria, and Garcia. Now, obviously, again, I will cover what I'm going to do with Stanisic further on in my transfer strategy piece. But for now, that is my defence. You can also see that I've only lost one midfielder option as well, which is quite good. At this point, I've lost a goalkeeper, defender, and a midfielder, which seems quite manageable so far, doesn't it? So, I mean, in terms of my midfield, it's only Elise that I've lost. So, Elise's been hit and miss, hasn't he? Obviously, he had a great game against Auckland, but hasn't really done much in the big games, or at least I know he's blanked in his past couple, hasn't he? So, yeah, he's got plenty of budget behind him, so selling him means that I can release budget and put it elsewhere, which is obviously really good. Now, my starting four is filled with a Chelsea doubler. Chelsea have a really nice fixture against Fluminense. Fluminense haven't really convinced. Obviously, they were good against Al Hilal, but at the same time, during that same game, they were absolutely hammered towards the end. I do think, Al Hilal could have scored two or even three goals during that game. So I'm more than happy to have the Chelsea doubler and Chelsea's two best midfielder options. I should add to that. So obviously Palmer, fantastic option on pans. He's back in form. Neto's already scored 3 goals in the matches that he's played. So yeah, really happy with the Chelsea duo going into this game. Now, I also have Arias. He's been a bit of a troll for me. I know he scored a direct free kick, but outside of that, which I didn't own him for, by the way. I didn't own him for that direct free kick goal. But outside of that, he's not really done much. He's looked quite lively, but he's really struggled to kind of put that play into actual output in terms of goals and assists. Now, he is in for now. The lack of midfield options in general, or the lack of viable options in general this week, does mean that I don't really need to pivot elsewhere. Arias is still, the kind of like talisman for Fluminense. So I think if Fluminense could get something, then there's potential for him to be actually involved in that. Now, outside of that, and completing my midfield, and my starting 4 midfield is Kvaratskhelia. Kvaratskhelia obviously has been absolutely so important for PSG, during the latter stages of the Champions League, during the whole, stages of the Champions League, during the Club World Cup as well. Obviously, he's not really done much in his past. I think he's blanked in his last couple of games, which isn't ideal. But he is still one of the most match-ready midfielders. Barcola and Doué, although Doué scored a bit of a lucky goal in the last match, I'm still not convinced by Barcola, Doué, or Ramos. So for me, PSG's best attackers are obviously Dembele and Kvaratskhelia. So Kvaratskhelia does feel like a hold this week. I'm fairly happy with my midfield. Obviously, there's a player in Elise that I need to actually, sort out, get rid of, replace. So, but outside of Elise, I'm fairly happy with that starting 4 midfield. So that's my midfield so far. Now, you can see that I've got a major problem up front. I have no players. Obviously, lost Guirassy because obviously their loss against Real Madrid. I lost Leonardo because of their loss against Fluminense. And I've also lost Kane as well due to Bayern's loss against PSG. At this point of the competition, there's still quite a few, fours that I could go for. Obviously, you've got the Real Madrid triple up. You've got Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Garcia. You've also got 2 potentially at João Pedro and obviously Nicholas Jackson if he starts. Obviously, we do get the lineups for that Chelsea game, which will be really important this week. But yeah, as it stands, obviously, I've lost a goalkeeper, I've lost a defender, lost a midfielder, and I've lost all 3 forwards, which means 6 players lost, only 5 free transfers. But we have already discussed the fact that I won't look to replace my goalkeeper, which means 5 transfers to replace 5 players. It seems fairly good. I probably won't need to take a hit this week unless maybe Chavarria is fully injured, in which there's a chance that I could do maybe high upside defender potentially. But again, we'll touch upon that in my upcoming transfer strategy. So with that in mind, let's take a look at it. So just taking a look at my transfer plans ahead of Matchday 6, obviously I've got enough transfers to replace all of the players that I want to now. As mentioned, I won't be looking to replace Weatherton in goal this week. I just don't think that, goalkeepers have that upside, in the latter stages of the competition. I'm quite happy to own the goalkeeper that I do. Both of my potential strategies involve, replacing Stanisic, Leonardo, Guirassy, Elise and Kane. Now, there's two routes that I can do that. So obviously the first one is João Pedro. João Pedro, a new signing for Chelsea. He's already impressed. A lot of Chelsea fans are quite impressed with what he's done. What he did in his first feature for Chelsea. And I was one of them. So you can see that he hasn't got a picture yet on the official site, but that's fine. So João Pedro is one of the players that I'm looking at. I'm also looking at Vinicius. Now, trying to pick between the 3 Real Madrid strikers is very difficult. at this point. But I think you'll see that Garcia is in both, and I'll explain why shortly. But I just think Vinicius is more likely to start than Mbappe. He's probably more likely to play 90 minutes. Mbappe, obviously, recently recovered from injury. He's not started the last 2 games either. So you kind of, if you do go for Mbappe, you're kind of hoping he does start, right? Now, Trent is another player I'm looking at. Obviously, I already have Guirassy, but I just think he's on it now in terms of attacking threat. He's managed back-to-back assists for Real Madrid. Obviously, he comes off early as well, which, as you saw against Dortmund, really did work in his favour. He managed the assist, he banked the clean sheet, and then he got subbed quite early, and it was Garcia who lost out on his clean sheet. So Trent obviously did really, really well. You'll notice that Dembele is in both of my plans as well now. I think at this stage of the competition, when you're looking at the midfielders, all of the standout midfielders, Dembele just has to be one of them. He was excellent in the Champions League recently. He was excellent in League One. He's likely front runner for Ballon d'Or. So I just think he's a fantastic player. He scored. He didn't start in his last match, similar to Mbappe from starting, but he scored from a small feature. So and that just shows the kind of impact that these players can have on their teams. Dembele is the PSG talisman. He is the main man. Kvaratskhelia has been the standout midfielder in the last few games just based on match fitness alone. But I think we're at a point now where Dembele is slightly edging it. So for me, Dembele is coming in regardless. Now, Garcia, he is obviously, it's not Fran Garcia, it's Gonzalo Garcia, who is actually the top scorer in Club World Cup. Now, you can also see that he is in both of my plans as well. No one really knows who's going to start from Real Madrid. We don't actually get the lineups, but I think based on his form, Garcia has been absolutely excellent. He's been Real Madrid's kind of main man in terms of goals. It would be unfair to not start him at this point, even with Mbappe coming back. Vinny's not been fantastic. So, either way, I think I'll be bringing in 2 Real Madrid strikers this week. I don't really want 2 Chelsea strikers. I think I prefer 2 Real Madrid. They're very capable. Real Madrid, they tend to do well in the latter stages of the competition. So I just think for me, Garcia is definitely coming in either way. Now, my second transfer plan is just kind of more directed towards Chelsea in a way, isn't it? So, we get the lineups for the Chelsea. We'll know who is going to be starting for Chelsea. And I think it's going to be Jackson. I think obviously he suffered his ban. He was maybe punished for his error in the last game too. But I just do think he comes in for the game against Fluminense. He's not a relentless striker. I think he's around 7 million, so he's fine. But he has been really, really vital for the Chelsea attack in the past. The Chelsea attack wasn't one of the best in the Premier League for no reason. Jackson, has to take some credit for that. So although he does miss big chances, he's very good at getting his positions, very good at stretching the opposition. He's an absolute nightmare for the opposition defence. So for me, he definitely should play against Fluminense, who I expect to be pretty tight at the back. To kind of complete my Chelsea doubler for potential incomings is Reece James. Now, he confirmed on social media that he was back and fit and ready to go and stuff like that. And again, we don't really need to rely on that because we get the lineups, right? So for me, I just think we look at the lines. If Reece James is playing, then he could be an excellent option. Obviously scored a direct free kick recently. He's just nailed in the Chelsea team when fit, or at least it seems. He can be the difference. In a game between a win, draw, or loss, just from set pieces alone. So I really, really like him. So as you can see, there's a bit of not quite sureness in between my transfer strategy, but what you will be able to see is that the 2 players that are very, very likely to come in for me is Dembele, just because I think he's one of the standout midfielders this week, and also Garcia, not just because he's cheaper than Mbappe and Vinny, but I think he deserves to start more than both Vinicius and Mbappe. I would start him in both the semi-finals and the final just because of how good he's been. But also, he's very likely to start as well. So I just think in terms of minutes, his performance, the fact that Mbappe hasn't been starting, I just think he just feels like an easy option this week. So yeah, a lot of it is based on the Chelsea lineups. We get the Chelsea lineups before the deadline, which is obviously really, really good. We need that information. We need to know who's starting. Is it going to be Pedro? Is it going to be Jackson? Is James going to be starting? Will Pedro and Jackson start? There's a lot of these questions that I need answering before fully confirming my transfer strategy. So they're my potential plans so far. are, a look at, you know, the players that I could bring in, obviously highlighting the fact that the lineups are going to be super, super important between Chelsea and Fluminense. So I will confirm my plans on Axe via a post. So good luck this week. So guys, that was my Club World Cup Fantasy Matchday 6 team selection video. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to like and subscribe as it says up there. And I'll see you again soon.